struggle that they had, the comparison of the words to actions. It all comes into play. Why? Because human behavior is unpredictable. Human behavior is unpredictable, and nobody knows it better than a police officer. So the best glimpse that we're going to get into the training of a Minneapolis police officer comes from the trainer who conducts the training.
An event that changed the world, an event that altered the course of history, and a trial that made global news. But why? How did a man completely unknown to the world make global news and is now a name recognized by millions? In this video, we will be breaking down the trial of Derek Chauvin.
What do you want?
I can't breathe.
Get up, get in the car.
I can't move.
I've been waiting the whole time, man. Get up, get in the car.
Mama.
Get up and get in the car right.
They gonna kill me, man.
The trial of Derek Chauvin was held in the District Court of Minnesota. This is where the Minneapolis officer Derek Chauvin was tried for the murder of George Floyd during an arrest on May 25, 2020.
Derek Chauvin was one of 4 officers of the Minneapolis Police Department involved in the arrest of George Floyd on suspicion that Floyd had used a counterfeit $20 bill at a local market. While Floyd was handcuffed and lying face down on the street, Chauvin knelt on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. For part of the time, 2 other officers knelt on his back. During the final 2 minutes, Floyd was motionless and had no pulse. This ultimately led to his death.
The evidence on causation, the medical causation in terms of what was happening to Mr. Floyd while he was there on the ground. And if I had to give this part of the evidence, you're going to see a name, I would tell you that you can believe your eyes, that it's a homicide, it's murder. You believe your eyes.
The prosecution began its case on March 29, 2021, and would rest just 11 days later on April 13th after hearing testimonies from 38 different witnesses. 18-year-old Darnella Frazier recorded the event on her iPhone. The video from the scene was played as a key piece of evidence throughout the trial. During Frazier's testimony, she wept on the stand as she described how the incident has affected her.
On May 12th, Judge Cahill allowed for the prosecution to seek a greater prison sentence after finding that Chauvin treated Floyd with particular cruelty. Prosecutors requested a 30-year prison sentence. Chauvin's attorney, Nelson, argued that the former officer should instead receive probation and time served, writing in a file that Mr. Chauvin asks the court to look beyond its findings to his background, his lack of criminal history, his amendability to probation, to unusual facts of this case, and to his being a product of a broken system.
Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty of unintentional second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. This was the first conviction of a white officer in Minnesota for the murder of a black person.
State of Minnesota plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin defendant. Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony. Find the defendant guilty. Count 2, third-degree murder perpetrating an eminently dangerous act. Find the defendant guilty. Count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk. Find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m.
Protests, rallies, and marches have occurred outside of the courthouse, which officials surrounded with temporary concrete barrier, metal fencing, and barbed wire in anticipation of a civil unrest. On March 7th, 2021, one day ahead of jury selection, several hundred protesters marched in downtown Minneapolis and rallied outside the courthouse to mourn Floyd's murder and to call for police reform. During the trial, daily visitors from across the United States visited George Floyd Square to raise attention to this ever-present issue.
People who had their hands in this case, and they just made it better for people. And I'm starting to feel like I can breathe again. Don't let this tragedy hit your front door before you make a decision. Pass the law. Pass the George Floyd Policing Act. If they can make federal laws to protect the bird, then they can make federal laws to protect people of color. Thank you.